Thank you. Meeting's called to order, and Deb's going to do an invocation for us.
And I would have to say this is a repeat from March, but I didn't have time for everyone, so I'm so sorry. Dear God, we gather together today intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal faiths give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Deb apologized for repeating the invocation. Unlike Joe, who gave me a month warning to prepare, I sent her an email last night and realized I was done what I needed to do. So thank you, Deb.
That one said you would use a different one.
Okay. Roll call.
Catherine D'Angelo. Here. Sid Blackwelder.
Honey.
Yes. Daryl Lykoff.
Here.
Debbie Gasky.
Here.
Robert James.
Here.
Willie Jean Johnson. Marvin King.
Here.
Joseph Lazara.
Here.
Robert Sheehan. Bernard Silverman.
Here.
Ivory Wilson.
Here.
Mr. Vice Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. And I see we do have a visit today and possibly a public comment.
Yes.
Good. Floor is yours.
Oh, thank you. Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Anita Moran, and I am the convener of the League of Women Voters of Horry County. My purpose today is to celebrate the activation of the Bucksport and Norris bus routes.
Good.
The League statewide has long advocated stronger transit opportunities for students, employees, and seniors. The ability to attend Horry Georgetown Tech and Coastal Carolina University, to get to medical appointments, do personal business, and shop brings health, economic, and quality of life benefits. The League in both Georgetown and Horry counties have advocated for public mass transportation through the Coast Advisory Council and through support of the 2010 referendum to fund Coast. We were proud to reach out to the public by placing posters in all county libraries to inform the voters about the benefits of reliable transportation. Over the years, many of our members have served on the advisory board. We are hopeful that the two new routes will be of great benefit. We look forward to additional routes that will pull other parts of the county into the system, such as North Myrtle Beach and Ana. Again, we celebrate with you as Coast RTA provides the additional opportunities to our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anita, I'll tell you, North Myrtle Beach comes up every month.
Well, I would think it would. It's an important part of it.
We'll get there.
Yes, I bring it up every time. I represent North Myrtle Beach.
Oh, great.
Brian, maybe employee recognition.
Not this month.
You can step right out if you want to, Anita. Thank you very much.
Minutes, everybody have a chance to read the minutes?
Great.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Service Committee, Blue Jean not here. You wanna-
Yeah, I can, maybe other folks can help me remember everything that was discussed, but the primary focus of the meeting was to have a small discussion on entertainment shuttle. We talked a little bit about, the ridership, which was very good. It was a little slow in June, but August we set a record for boardings on that route. And I gave the committee some statistics on sort of how it would affect the metrics of our system if we didn't have the entertainment shuttle. And really, it was really more for my own edification, just because, I think the political argument about, whether or not we run that service based, depending on where our revenue streams are coming from, just just knowing kind of what we're gonna have, to tell people about how our ridership per hour, you know, how our cost per revenue hour and those types of things, and our farebox revenue changes. We're just gonna have to be kind of Johnny on the spot with information about how our system has changed, you know, with and without the entertainment show. What else should we discuss?
Bus stops. You had AECom was present.
Oh, that's what it was, right?
Right.
Yes. How quickly we forget. This is gonna steal a little thunder out of the general manager's report, but that's okay. We've given AECom notice to proceed on the bus stop designation program. That contract has two pricing schemes in it. The first pricing scheme is a estimate to complete type of payment schedule for all the planning elements. Things like just developing the database of stop locations. They're doing some due diligence on our sign and getting it approved by DOT so that it's not any issue on that front moving forward. They're going to start working on an implementation plan. What stops will be the easiest? How should we schedule them? And then they're giving us a policy on bus stop location, both for moving, eliminating, and installing stops, so that we have some nice subjective criteria moving forward on what should constitute a stop and what shouldn't constitute a stop. So that's all kind of that planning piece is in place. They've gone back to their offices to start working on it, and we'll have an update in the December service pack committee meeting. And then, we're hopefully going to start seeing some products here in January timeframe, sometime during the month. And then the second part of it, the second task order will be actual construction of, and installing signs. So that there's two different funding sources that are tied to those task orders. I thought AECom came up with a really good way to price out the installation of signs. We'll essentially, through the implementation process, develop batches. We want to try to put together batches of signs to be installed all at once, just so that we're making the best use of our contractors. So there's a price per stop based on batches of 24 signs or more, and then there's a price per sign for batches of 8 to 24. Because it's a little smaller, typically those would be a little harder to do. And then there's a price per sign for batches of 1 through 8, and that's for the ones that turn out to be kind of a heavy lift. Maybe we need a pad, or there's some issue with permitting, or there's a property owner issue, those types of things. So you might have a batch of 5 that kind of fit in that category. We played in place for 8, and that's sort of how we inflate the price on the heavier lift locations. Any questions?
I see two possible signs, one's in Spanish, the end result, do you think they're going to be bilingual, or do you have an idea what?
Yeah, I gave the one that we like, I gave to the AECom folks to actually physically bring to DOT.
Okay.
So that was just another alternative over there, and I don't see it. There's just one over there right now.
Yeah, there's one on the floor back there.
Oh, there's one on the floor, yeah.
Yeah,
that's
that
part of
is, that was, is Michelle in here? That's the sign she got approved for, within Conway for those 2 routes to put up out here. Just inside Conway, just as a temporary sign. So that one's a little bit different. But it looks good there where Sid would normally be sitting, right?
You don't have any approved from Myrtle Beach, do you?
We don't have anything approved at Myrtle Beach yet, but we're hoping to have a standard sign. So our first step is to get that through SCDOT, and then we'll start taking it to the cities. SCDOT is going to be the landowner for the vast majority of where our signs are being located. Even Kings Highway, that's all SCDOT right away. So, getting their buy-in at the beginning of the process was really critical to the project.
So
We also, I'm sorry?
No, I want to interject something before I forget about it. So these signs have been approved by Conway. If if you go back to Cycle Island DOT,
Yeah,
then these signs won't be no more good.
they're just temporary.
Right,
They're
okay.
just temporary.
I'll make sure y'all clear on that, that's all.
Yeah.
You know, in Conway, if you get into the historical district, you gotta have a different sign.
Right, well, we're not really in there, you know, we don't really have any routes in there yet, but we might at some point.
Yeah, that's what.
So, yeah, we'll work with them on that. The other major point that came out of that discussion was they came prepared with a little bit of due diligence on this issue with the ADA and having stops, new signs not being implemented at areas that are not ADA compliant. And they feel like that because even though we're a flag stop system, we have all these locations that we have designated as stops, and they can be grandfathered into this process. So while ADA will be a critical set of considerations moving into these locations, we don't think it's going to be as much of an hindrance as it potentially could have been. You know, if there's a stop out there that we need to pay for a pad, we will. You know, we'll just do it. So it's not, I mean, that's not huge bucks.
That leads into my second question. The AECom scope of work, do they do any preliminary work that this stop would be compatible with a shelter and a pad in the future? Or is that beyond the scope?
Yeah, well, it's not, I mean, I suppose there's a few out there that might fit that bill. The thing about placing shelters is I want that to be based on ridership.
Okay.
So once we get into this and we start getting data, which will become possible when we have actual locations,
Okay.
then we'll figure out where the shelters need to go. So it's sort of all critical path, if you will.
I have a couple of questions. One is, like when he said he would try to have his part of, his phase one done possibly end of January, he hedged a little bit, and that's fair. But what will we expect him to bring us at that point?
I think we'll know a little bit more about that at the update in December.
Okay.
But, I mean, I think what I want is the policy, first and foremost, and then secondly, their take on their implementation plan. Where are they gonna go first? I mean, they hinted about doing it kind of a route by route. Depending on the route, that's multiple jurisdictions. So I just want them to put a lot of thought into what's the path of least resistance to get all these things implemented. And, you know, the first slug of money we're getting out of 5307 is not gonna cover all of the stops. So we want some semblance of order. You know, if we're doing 125 of 600 stop locations with this money, then let's put those 125 where they're gonna be of use. And there's gonna be some customer intuitive kind of layout on where they're at, and you know, so you know, I would think that we're gonna be kind of going from Myrtle Beach out.
Well, I heard him
But
mention
we'll
something
see.
about Georgetown, but there's not that many stops on Georgetown, right? I
Right.
mean, you wouldn't have that many signs put up.
Well, and it's 17, US 17 presents
Yes.
a lot of issues on that
While
front.
you're stopping and searching.
But I think that, you know, that will be one that we're working with DOT. We try to use right turn lanes, so we're kind of getting out of traffic to make them a little bit safer on a lot of those stops. You know, we might consider going into some parking lots, which really slows the route down, so we gotta be careful about that, but, I mean, I think a lot of those.
And do they want you to go into their parking lot?
Right, I mean, there's
Right.
property owner issues, but, you know, there's gonna have to be a lot of thought put into those stop locations and a lot of working with DOT, so those may be kind of heavier lifts and pushed to the end of
But
the,
that's what we're paying them for.
right. They're figuring all that out.
Right.
I got,
And Kurt, the guy who's leading that effort is the
Right.
right guy for that job. He's been
Right.
doing this for a lot of years, so.
He seems to be.
on the,
Very understandable.
on the 15 North, we're running it now on Kings Highway instead of Ocean Boulevard. And I'm wondering if we plan to continue that, and if we do, what about the signs that are, the great signage that we have on Ocean Boulevard is really misleading at this point.
Well, those will still be served by the 16s.
Okay.
And so we'll be changing the notes that are on those signs on which routes are serving them. And we're gonna be hosting some public meetings in October to make that change permanent.
So the 16 would pick you up on 21st and drop you off at 45th? That's not really what the 16 is doing, but that's what they're signing.
Yeah.
You know what?
Yeah, I mean, yes,
Yeah, we could do
conceivably could do that.
Yeah, I could do that,
I
yeah.
wouldn't pay $1.50 for that trip, but
Well,
yeah, there's not enough frequency there to really make that trip worthwhile on the system.
right, but if the signs are there, it implies that we'll do that. We'll go from 21st to, 89th or whatever, 69th, whatever.
One thing that I want AECom to do is to determine if we need to reduce the number of locations. I think there needs to be a little bit more distance between them. And so we may look at removing some of those signs along Ocean Boulevard.
Well, I think they're misleading because, I think somebody would wait for the bus there. The 16 comes up there once or twice a day, right? And I think people would go to a bus stop and wait for the bus. And I think they
Well,
would find out.
And there are some stop locations where the sign actually has information on there that if you want to get the 15 north or the 15 south, you need to go to Kings Highway.
I've not seen those.
And there's different information at those locations along Ocean Boulevard at each of those stops. And so, the other thing was, what about our seasonal services? And there are a few unique stops out there that are unique to the entertainment shuttle. And we may look at a hinged sign, so you can put it up and not be a sign during the times that it's not operating.
The bridge figures it before.
Right, exactly.
Well, are we planning to keep the 15 north where it is now?
Yes, we'd like to make it permanent. And so we're gonna go do some public meetings and let ridership weigh in on that. A lot of the folks I've talked to, and I haven't talked to a ton, but a lot of them like it.
I love it.
You don't like it?
No, but I'm fine
Well,
with it.
then we'll better put it back.
Yeah, I don't like it, but I'm doing good, okay. I'm okay with it.
Well, the issue, there's a couple issues. One, we're not getting any ridership between 31st and 53rd, or even higher, 68, along the Golden Mile on Ocean Boulevard. The trees are killing our buses on 31st.
Yeah, no, I get it.
And then, what we may end up doing is going up to 52nd, I think, northbound and going out to the resorts, and then southbound coming straight down Kings Highway.
Yeah, I'm easy either way, really. I don't really mind. I've adjusted to a lot of
Do you hear
changes.
that,
So other
ladies?
people.
He's easy.
And so have other people, but adjusted to more changes. But I will tell you this, that, we talked about the service committee and fare box recovery and passengers and all that stuff. But I think the bottom line is I think that we're giving our customers a very good ride. I think they're getting good service. They have, good, clean vehicles. They look good. The drivers are good. The transfer center is a big boost to our ridership. We're on time, very much on time, I think. And so I think all the facts that we get on service committee and stuff are all important. But
Can we get the city to
We're doing a
trim
good
those
job.
trees?
Not
No?
live oaks.
They won't trim a live oak?
No.
Well, if our buses are running into them,
Yeah,
their
we're
other
true.
trucks are running into them.
Get
Well,
a man caught, they do it.
This has kind of been an issue, it's almost system-wide. We had a branch lodged in one of our air conditioning units coming off of Sandy Island Road. And so we got DOT to act pretty quickly on trimming those back, but we've had issues in Market Common, and so
Well,
we're
I
just
got
trying to
one
stay
down
on
in
top
my
of it.
yard. A big
Brian,
one.
I think that could, I'm sorry to cut you off. I think the city would trim, if, they would trim, but they won't cut.
They'll trim it.
They would trim, though.
Underneath.
There's, the route, as it started, on the southbound, on the inbound, comes in to 29th and turns, because you can't make that turn on the 31st.
Right,
Because there's a huge live oak right there.
yeah.
And we beat up 2 buses pretty harshly on that tree.
You don't wanna
So,
do
Can I make a
that.
suggestion that you city manager letter that make suggestion. Because I think if you did that, he would probably trim those.
I would think if they want bus service, that they would do something.
But there's other reasons to be on Kings Highway.
Well, it's dangerous, I mean, you know, they can get somebody hurt, man, or something.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting better on-time performance if we stay on Kings Highway, and there's quite a bit of, there's been quite a bit of traffic. We probably could look at some ridership to see, see if it's
Let
actually.
me ask you another question, are there signs, because on some of those streets where they had those trees at, they got no trucks. Did there a sign to indicate that on that particular street?
Yeah, 31st has
38th,
been,
you're talking
38th, I mean, has been a bit controversial ever since we've been on it. And cutting over to Ocean Boulevard at that location doesn't really generate any ridership for us. 52nd would work if there was a traffic signal on Kings Highway. And you could come back out 52nd and go inbound on Kings Highway, but that takes a lot to get a traffic signal put out there.
I don't think you're gonna find a difference in ridership. I think people will just, not everyone's gonna be happy in either spot. People want to go to both places, and, they'll just go where they need to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a bit of retail, and we'll see, but it is helping us on time performance.
Years ago, there was, now there's from the beach, there's a 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock. Now, years ago, there was a 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, well, 2 o'clock in there, I forget, and I really hated it because I wanted a 1. Now there's a 1, so now I missed the 2. I just want what I want, so does everybody else,
You gave him what he wanted, now he doesn't want it.
Well, the moral to that story is that we really need both.
He's
Yeah,
telling you
right.
what people will feel, that's what.
Everybody, no one will be happy all the time, and
That's
they'll do
right.
what they do.
And I had that question from one of the county councilors in Georgetown, and I don't want to say it jumped down his throat, but I totally mishandled the response, because he basically said, you've got this 3 o'clock trip, why don't you try a 2 o'clock trip? And I'm like, well, if I do a 2 o'clock trip, then I'm pissing everybody off at 3. That's what I said. I'm pissing everybody off at 3
Right,
o'clock.
That's exactly
The
right.
answer to that question is we need both
Right.
trips,
Right.
and that just takes more money.
Right.
And I don't remember what I said, but I was
Put your
like,
hand
God,
out,
I
you
missed
need
that
more
one.
money.
Yeah.
And you'll give them the 2 and 3.
I think that was the gist of our discussion on service pack.
Thank you, Luigi. Marvin, Finance Committee?
Absolutely. So we actually had 2 committee meetings since our last board meeting. We had one in August and one yesterday. Thank you for everyone coming out. Off day there. But the main piece of both of those meetings is really the FY18 budget. However, in the financials, in the July and August financials, which are both in your packet, I guess the main sense that we from the committee got from the financials is that 17 is pretty much done. I think we're on target. If you look at our overall budget, it's right there. So it's smoothed out over the year. A couple of pieces that we continue to look at. Salaries were over. Maintenance continued to be under budget. Over budget, I should say. And so those sort of wash each other out, so that we didn't have too much of an over or under budget for the entire fiscal year. One piece, though, that I think that is still sort of a burden for us is liquidity and just the cash side of it. And so really trying to get a handle on that. Fortunately, we're able to make use of the line of credit or CMB. So using that really pretty much saved us. But I think going into the new year is really trying to figure out those revenue sources. And stealing Brian's thunder, but this is basically what we've seen. So as we look at the FY18 budget, just kind of really thinking about that liquidity side of it, and figuring out how we can assist the general manager in getting whatever funding from wherever. So if we can do that, let's do it. It's definitely needed.
Goodness, isn't it nice to hear somebody who knows what they're talking about? He's blushing.
I tell you. But I think those are major concerns. as you see, we also talked about the ATAX application, which is one of the resolutions, and the main thing there is just really funding the entertainment shuttle, which, as we've talked about before, we don't have the funding. We have to look at shutting it down, which would be unfortunate.
With the A-tax application, that's the city or the county?
City,
Okay, no, the county has A-tax money too. But you can't get that now.
well, I hadn't thought about it.
And there's more, actually. I think they take
I don't know when they're, if
Yeah.
they even accept applications for
Yeah,
it.
they do. Yes, they do too.
Okay.
I know, trust me.
I thought it was all county, I didn't really know.
No, I'll get ready to apply for it. You gotta do it before April.
For county?
You gotta do it before April.
Okay.
Northern Beach had due for end of October. You're interested?
Well, our application at the city is due Friday.
Right.
So
I
we're
know,
diligently working on it, but,
29th. But the reason why I said that for because there was an article in the Sun News maybe a couple months ago where the county really exposed the idea that people were, after that A-tax money, they had like $1.5 million in A-tax money. And they said people were, nobody really would, and all of a sudden everybody just stopped applying for it now. I don't know what the status is, but I did call Mark Lazarus. He confirmed you have to go online and look it up and all that stuff. But it's online, you can fill the application out and all that stuff.
I think for the, I mean, we're applying for it for the entertainment show, which is like strictly on Myrtle Beach, so it kind of,
Okay.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of falls in line with that,
Yeah.
with them as being the source, but, you know, maybe down the line, we'll have some other services that we can try to apply for. I guess taking this stuff in order, are there any questions about the financials?
Yeah, I just want to ask one question, Marvin. And I did understood that you mentioned the salaries was over budget, you said?
Well, as our numbers came in on the good side, so we'll say it that way.
Okay.
So that, and that was primarily, I think, due to transit side. I don't know. We talked a little bit about that, whether it was a factor of not having, you know, the drivers and not having to pay, but.
Okay, I was just curious, that's all. Thank you.
I got one finance thing. We talked earlier in the year, maybe in spring, maybe over the summer, about kicking off our applications to these cities for their meeting their budgets in the fourth quarter. So the fourth quarter starts, you know, in a couple of days. Are we ready to do that? And do we need to sign the resolutions that we usually do in January? Do we need to do them next month or earlier in January?
I will look into that. I think when we talk about board schedule, we're gonna ask for an October meeting and a November-December combined meeting, which will be that first week of December. And so we'll make sure we get them on there if we need to. Those conversations are really centered around the county, city of Conway. Haven't really figured out Surfside yet. We're going to the city of Georgetown.
You know, we need to go back to Loris.
And we need to go back, well, Loris was a 2-year deal
Oh, okay.
for, or an 18-month deal.
18 months.
So,
But 250.
we may wanna broach the subject with them anyway for the 6 months after the sunset of the grant, but we'll see.
So to make these points, I just wanted to give them some numbers. So we were under budget at about 67,000 year to date on salaries, on transit salaries, and at 66 over on vehicle maintenance. So that's why I said
Okay,
kind of watch itself.
66 over.
67 on
Right.
transit, transit salaries, and 66 on vehicle maintenance.
Thank you.
You brought up salaries, our overtime was up, but the silver lining part of that is, when you pay a lot of overtime and not hiring another employee, you're not paying fringe benefits a second time. Actually, it comes out to a plus for us, and I think that's good.
Right.
That help?
So any questions? I guess one thing that we talked about yesterday that I just wanted to give everybody a heads up on was, I looked at the last August's financials and got a 12-month number on maintenance costs was about $1.18 a mile. And so the 12-month number this August is about $1.30. So maintenance costs went up 12 cents per revenue mile. That's not per total mile. Okay, so I think that the new buses should really bring that number down. And we're budgeted basically for that $1.30. So we should have some play in that line item for FY18, hopefully.
And that increase of maintenance per revenue mile brought down breakdowns quite a lot.
Yeah, I'll look at that. You know, I'll do some 12-month comparisons once we get the September financials put in place, you know, because I'll compare fiscal years, or at least the last 12 of FY16, and we'll get you some numbers on that. But yeah, I think we held our own and probably did reduce some of the even bigger change for us on that front is that by virtue of having a spare vehicle down at the transit center, we're so much more responsive when we have a breakdown that we don't call it a breakdown unless we miss 20 minutes of service. So we had our share of those, but those don't go into the numbers because we haven't really inconvenienced anyone, so we don't really count it as a breakdown in those cases.
Are those 4 buses working like they
We are rolling the miles on those
Okay.
suckers.
No breakdowns, no.
They look real nice, though. They look
They
real
are,
good.
What
so far
about-
so good.
What about trolleys? Are we gonna order trolley?
Not at this point. I wanna try to get a little bit closer to what we're doing with the entertainment shuttle.
Yeah.
But I'm of the opinion that if we replace those, that we don't replace them with trolleys. That we replace them with a vehicle that's a little bit more useful on other routes. Something with low floor, 2 doors, you know, that can be a lot more efficient in
Hey,
terms
Ron,
of
how you
moving
doing?
people around on such a short route.
Let's make it get out.
And that may take us a couple of years to do that.
So you do away with the trolleys?
So I do away with them.
Yeah.
Or put them in contingency,
They're
you know,
a
if we
big
need them.
selling- They're a big selling point.
Well, we can put them in
Well,
contingency and still use them for parades and
Yeah.
kid things, or at least one of them.
Yeah.
But the green and white one,
Yeah,
it's past
right.
refurbishing it.
Well, you have 2 red ones,
And we have
right?
2 red and green ones.
Yeah.
Those are in decent shape.
Are they the 2 that we got from Florence?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
They have, they need wiring harnesses, which is, you know, just all the electrical in that bus.
Yeah,
But we'll have to redesign it. The wiring harness design does not exist
yeah, at
anymore.
one time they used to have music that you could put in, and the bells used to ring. They're not doing any of that anymore.
Yeah, those are,
I guess they
I
were
don't know
the
about
old
the
ones.
bell.
I think the bells ring.
The bells ring.
Oh, you don't hear it inside.
You hear it if it rings.
No, well, it was a clanging we had. I think it was in one of the older
Yeah, now
ones.
you hear it.
Do you hear
It
it?
clangs.
Yeah?
People clang it, everybody
Okay.
jumps.
All right.
The driver stops.
So to be determined on that though, because we're trying to figure out what's going on with the entertainment shuttle.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't want to put any more money into those vehicles if we're not going to run the
All
entertainment
right,
shuttle.
right. What about, have we had any meetings on that? Any money come through on those? On the entertainment?
Well, just our ATAX application.
Just
is
that,
what's
nothing
going on right
else?
now. Well, and we met with Mark Lazarus, who
Yeah.
felt like we need the entertainment shuttle mostly for J1 students,
Yeah,
and said he would help us approach other
right. We discussed that
tourism
before.
venues
Right,
about kicking in. So we're gonna see what happens with the ATAX, and then hopefully augment whatever we get from the ATAX.
And they're gonna let us get a tax, because before they wouldn't let us apply for it, because they said we had no beds.
No heads in beds.
Right.
we did have-
Well,
yes,
Well, if you
yes.
look at the list on the state statute of what you can use ATAX, tourist-based shuttles is like number 5 on the list.
I know
So-
North Myrtle Beach gives out money for things you would not believe.
For their ATAX.
Yes,
Most really.
yes,
North
North Myrtle Beach.
Yeah.
Well,
They have more money.
maybe we
God,
work
give
on
me
an
that.
application for them at some point soon.
Yeah,
Back up, what Bernie made a comment about the improvement in breakdowns and our on-time performance is great. I think rightfully so, I think most of us probably know, when we're running a little bit late, or we waive fare to keep things moving to stay on time. I think the fare back to recovery may be down a little bit, I think that is the right decision. It's more important to be on time where people expect us to be there, even if we take a small dip in fare. So that was the right decision.
Now, each municipality has a board that says yea or nay to these ATEX things. We have to get on those boards. They do, because in North Myrtle Beach, they do. They have several people who judge whether or not, because they give out money for the animal shelter and things like that. I don't see where that's heads in beds or beds in heads or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So, 86% on-time performance in August, which is usually our toughest month from a traffic perspective. So I think we have a really good application for ATEX, so we'll see how it goes.
It piggyback on something Kitty was saying, and I'll make sure I'm clear. With
Right.
ATEX committees is they only recommend. Because I know, I get money from the city for the Fair Job Festival. You still got to go in front of the council. You get approval. So the council not gonna give you money for right now for the services of the bus company. ATEX, they still gonna try to reject it because you still got to go in front of the council with the same mentality, saying, hey, this is what I want to get for the purposes. So they have control over the ATEX money. The council do.
I think along those lines, it's going to be important to have a good response to the question is, what do you do with the $352,000 we do give you? And so I'll be ready for that question.
Oh, my God.
And they be ready to give the answer to it.
I think any of us, get this piece of paper and
Well,
show
but
them.
I mean eloquently respond. Not telling them I'm full of crap.
But we trust you, Brian. We
You don't
trust
want
you.
me talking to them.
I don't need any loose cannons, kid.
Yeah, we trust you.
So I will be ready. I'll be ready for
You
that
done
question.
with that?
Just about, so just as we look at the FY18 budget, just want to point out one discussion we had, and as we look at conservative budget, meaning, looking at the high possible expenses, lowest possible revenues, we were 60,000 roughly short, looking at that conservative side. So Brian and Ron took a look to see if there's anything to look at.
So to make sure I'm clear on something, now, you talking about money.
Budget
You
is the last
you got good numbers
in your packet.
on the conservative
It's on the
side.
sheet.
That mean that, like we trying to be more, less spending or whatever?
Well, we looked at expenses, where we're at, for instance, when we look at maintenance,
Okay.
thinking what's the worst possible scenario under maintenance expenses. So if you look at your highest expenses and your lowest revenues, that's what I mean by conservative.
Okay.
So yeah, you can back down the expenses, but is that realistic as to what you're gonna see for the year? Or if you lower your revenues, you may get more, but it'd be more conservative to look at the lower side.
That's why you professor, I'm not.
Well, I mean, I think what we ought to do, we ought to use this time to kind of go through those, the budget and the ATEX application information, since that's part of Finance Committee.
Yep.
But you all will be voting on 2 resolutions. We're not going to have the 3rd resolution. I'll talk about that when we talk about the ATEX. But let me just give everybody a rundown on the assumptions that are in this budget. If you pull out, it's like 3rd to the last or 2nd to the last page in your package. It's 11 by 17, so you have half a chance of being able to read it
It's the last sheet before the
resolutions themselves. There's two major revenue assumptions that speak to revenue sources that we don't have yet, but we feel are reasonably available. And that is $200,000 from ATAX. That's it,
That's it.
Mr. Wilson.
Yeah.
So that's what we're putting in for our application. I think that if we put in for 200,000, we don't have a great chance of getting 200,000, but what we'll do is if we get, say, 100,000, then we'll try to augment on the supply side, from the Hospitality Association, to get up to the 200,000. So that's sort of our goal moving forward. There's also an augmentation of our rural grant from the state of 150,000 in here. I plan on going to SCDOT with the story that, guys, I'm on the cusp of getting, more local funding. But this is a stopgap measure. I need 150,000 in FY17 funds. These are funds that were not spent by other providers in the state. This one year only. I'm hopeful that I'll get it, and I feel like we have a reasonable chance of getting it. As Marvin mentioned, there is basically dipping into local funds essentially from the October to December quarter next year, so past our fiscal year, in order to make this balance. And that's column D, local funds FY19. Now those funds are available to us as of July 1st of next year. It's just we meet them out by quarter because that's how we get paid for them. But that is not ideal, and we had a really good conversation yesterday about how do we want to do that? Should we, shave the budget, so that we don't show it in here, or is it cannon fodder for telling the outside world, like, look, we are pulling out all the stops in order to make this budget work. And I failed to mention at the beginning of this, our number one goal is not to cut service.
Right.
We have too much momentum in the community to be pulling anything off the street right now, including the entertainment shuttle for that matter. But, and so that's what this budget is based on, is keeping service on the streets. I think there is, as Marvin mentioned, there's a little bit of fluff in here. And so I feel like that first budget revision, we would try to pull back on that 60,000 as best we could. But for now, I think it needs to sustain there.
Well, then you would know the answer, they're gonna like you to get the 150,000 at 17. If that became a no, we're gonna need the fluff and the 60.
Right, exactly. So the other thing, and I think this is important to Dr. Sheehan, is that we have 200,000 in ATAX. If we totally strike out on those tourist-based revenue streams, then we are faced with pulling the entertainment shuttle next year. And that's sort of, I don't know that we need a consensus vote or anything like that until it happens, but that's something that you all will have to make a decision on at some point during the year. But that was the only way I think he would approve the budget is if we had that sort of caveat in there that if we don't get that money, then we pull that service. So that's almost a one-for-one term in terms of cost and
So if we don't get the money from ATAX or from somewhere else for the entertainment shuttle, and you're saying that we would have to decide if we want to keep it.
right.
If we wanted to keep it, where would the money come from?
It's a good question.
I thought it was already decided that if we didn't get money, we wouldn't keep the shuttle.
Well, I think that's.
Wasn't that the decision that we were talking?
Well, we never made a formal
Yeah,
decision.
that's what we talked about it.
So I think let's see how things go with the application, and then if I need a formal decision, I'll come back to you with one. And that will be that could be coming in a number of forms, but the form I'm contemplating is a budget revision. And we'll reduce costs and we'll reduce revenue. And then it'll be a new budget page.
Brian, let me back up a little bit.
Yes, sir.
Very briefly on the ATAX, from my experiences, and of course you know as much as I do about it, but in order to retain or get that amount of money for the entertainment shuttle, be able to show demographics show.
We have some excellent survey data from last year.
Tourists.
From last summer, it's
Right.
60% tourists.
Yeah.
Pretty good percentage of J1s on there.
Okay.
I think our take is that it's gonna improve public safety. It's taking cars off the road. If you're
Right.
out partying and drinking, you can not take your car. You can park once, at the resort and still get to all these different venues. And then it's helping moving employees for these venues around.
I think just to interject, because I deal with this and I got my experience at this, I'm just going to share with you and let you move on, is that what you just said is true, and if you can justify the tourism aspect of it.
Yes.
And
I think we will be.
that's all you got to really do, really, and you should be all right with that.
I mean, I even have numbers on how many of those tourists had access to a car.
Right.
So we'll have some good stats on that.
I thought I would throw that out there.
We
Between
also
now and
had
Friday.
We also had their income levels of people writing, which was impressive. I mean, it's over 60,000.
Yes. So that was a good segue into the ATAX application, but are there any other questions about the budget? Because we are asking you all to vote on it today.
So, before I make a vote or make any consensus on anything, he kind of went over some stuff with the budget. So, We got a copy of that in here.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we're using the committee structure to make the sausage, as I like to say. You know, that's where all the detail, we went through all the details, we talked about, you know, what SC toll credits are, you know, all this information on here. And I'm happy to answer any of those questions, but we're hoping to, you know, keep that discussion at the committee level. The committee's coming with a recommendation to approve this budget, basically.
Do we have to vote today? I mean, asking, do we have to vote
Yes, we
today?
have a
Okay.
resolution.
Ready
Okay.
to vote.
I just asked, I mean, I just,
We have a resolution.
and I'm lost, I don't come to meetings, so I guess I'm
Right
lost.
behind this.
So I don't think there's really anything else to say. I mean, there is a small capital program on here. We're utilizing funds from other sources to do the match. The Horry County capital money is huge. You'll see at the bottom, that's column E. There's still $464,000 that we haven't found a use for. I will tell you that we were in on an application with the state to buy 4 more new flyers. And that's exactly where that money will go if we get that grant. And those buses, those new flyers will replace DART buses. So that's pretty cool if we were able to get that.
I'm gonna have to step out, but is there any other questions for management?
Hopefully your class is still there.
I know.
Good job,
Half of the
thank
mark
you so
will be there,
much.
but it's okay. Thanks.
Thank you, though. Thank you, Mark.
Show 'em the bill.
I'll swing back by the sign resolution.
Show 'em the
Okay.
bill.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, bud.
Okay, so ATAX, if there's nothing else on this, the ATAX application, we're only asking for a resolution from you all to apply for it. We have to have that as part of our application. I think everybody's, unless there's any other questions, everybody's on board with that. But I did want to talk about this issue with the child protection policy, which is a requirement of the grant if you are directly serving children. And that was a little bit of a sticky wicket for us. We're not a school bus system, so we're not like focused on children. Children obviously ride our vehicles, but I've done, and Kevin also, we've done extensive searches on transit systems actually having anything remotely like a child protection policy. I haven't even seen anything on a passenger protection policy, just like an overarching thing. And so I'm not inclined to provide them with a policy per se, because our buses are just like City Hall. Anybody can walk in that door, and I mean, it's total access. And so what I will do is give them a litany of procedures that we have where we're trying to protect, you know, the folks who are on our buses. But it also has raised, and I'll pass around some stuff here, but it also raised a concern that I think we probably need to get some more things down on paper. And it really relates to code of conduct. And I'll just pass these around and look at these. I've got 3 examples of other transit systems who have written out their code of conduct. And we have some work to do on our website on, you know, children 12 and under, which is our procedure, have to ride with a parent. But it's not written down anywhere. It's not on the website or any of that. So we got to get that squared away.
And do they?
I think we're, in general, we are following that procedure. If an 8-year-old tries to get on the bus, everything stops. We contact the authorities.
Really?
And we don't let that child ride. And we've had one incident where a kid's brother tried to put him on the bus to let him go down to Garden City, where his sister was going to pick him up. And we're like, whoa, no, we can't do that. It's not like an airplane where you've got a controlled environment, you have everybody's name and what seat they're in, and all of that stuff. That's
a lawsuit with the house right there.
Exactly.
Well,
So we need to have those procedures, you know, hammered out. I will let the ATAX board know about conflict resolution. We're having some training in January. I have a meeting on Friday with a guy who's going to help us provide that training on reducing conflicts, and, you know, trying to diffuse the situation before it gets out of hand.
Now, can that 12-year-old get on the bus with that kid?
Well, I don't know how old the brother was, but
Yeah.
I think we want that person to be 18.
Uh-huh, okay.
So there is this gray area, the 13 to
Sure,
17-year-olds
They could be kidnapping
who can ride
the
by
kids, they could
themselves.
be, you know, God knows what.
They could be running away from home.
Yes,
We do
right.
have something like that, you know, pictograph thing,
We do?
buses, yeah, no eating, no drinking, you know.
Oh, yeah.
something like that. So that would be an easy one, if that's what all they're doing, and we can do that. Some of the buses have parts of the pieces of that already.
Back to your application though, even though we don't have formal policy, one, we can state we're in compliance with South Carolina code such and such, but if they want to go back and read it, they'll find out we're exempt.
Right, we looked
They'll
at the
be-
code,
And we can just cite that in your application.
right.
Kids under 12 don't ride, and we have cameras.
And then it's our procedures to maintain the
Yeah.
cameras in good working order.
I think that's for your
And I think-
Passenger
application.
security.
And so the only other point I want to make about this is that they could throw our application out because they feel like we should have a child protection policy. And I would fight that,
Yeah,
but,
but we talked yesterday about not even putting that in there. I think that'd be the easiest way to throw out your application.
right, so
You did-
addressing it,
You got to address it, let them come back.
and we will.
They're not going back and look at South Carolina code and find out you're exempt anyway. We are in full compliance with South Carolina's,
Right.
whatever you said yesterday.
Yep.
I bet they, not one of those bureaucrats.
They don't even know what the code is.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're headed on that. So even after starting a passenger protection policy last night, I was like, you know what, this is, even if I could get one written, knowing you all, we'd want to wordsmith the living daylights out of it. And so we're gonna work on some more carefully.
You'd have to go to a lawyer to do it.
I was gonna say,
Hang on a second. We have more carefully crafted language, and I'll bring it back to you, and there may be a policy that comes out of it. But it's something that, it's just kind of enlightens me on sort of a weakness that we have that we need to address.
I was just gonna say, APTA is gonna be the perfect opportunity to talk to Bella.
Yes, and I'm headed to Apple here in a couple of weeks.
And so the second resolution on our agenda, we will not be discussing.
Correct.
Okay. Is this all your general manager report, or are you still talking finance?
That was all finance,
Okay.
but I can abbreviate my general manager's report considerably.
All right. Since we've discussed one. All right.
Yes, please. So are we at the general manager's
Yes,
report?
we are.
Okay,
Yes, we're fine.
so I'm passing around the project list. And when you go 2 months without a board meeting, I was happy to see a lot of changes on this list. Although we probably still could have done more. And I'm just gonna hit some highlights on this.
Do we have that?
It's coming around, it's coming around. Here, I actually have an extra.
All right.
The big thing that I wanted to give you all an update on is all of the reviews we've had in the past year. FMO is down to 2 open items out of whatever it was, 14 or so, 14 or 15 items. One is getting some clarification from FT on exactly what they're talking about related to milestone reporting on our grants. I think that one's gonna be closed pretty quickly. The other one is on what the heck are we doing with our internationals, and that's a harder nut to crack. So, I don't know that I can even remotely predict when that one's gonna close, so this FMO may be hanging over our head for a little bit longer. But we're working on it. Even to the point where, we may go back to the manufacturer about putting a new engine and new transmission and those things. It doesn't have a thermal brake on it. But we'll see. More on that
Number
in
3.
future service. That is number 1. Number 3 is the triennial findings resolution. Now, we've made some inroads on triennial, mostly through the FMO. They've done us a solid, if you will, in terms of not holding us to closing related findings between the 2 reviews. So as we close FMO, we're automatically closing out a lot of the triennial review stuff. The thing that's still out there that I haven't had a chance to get to is the ADA related stuff, mostly related to our paratransit system and the math that goes into looking at our capacity constraints. We claim that we don't have any capacity constraints, but we haven't actually done the math to show that to prove it. And that just requires a lot of data coming out of route maps that we frankly don't know how to extract. So we're working on that. So, you know, I mean, they gave us some ridiculous time frame, 60 days on some of these, and we're just not gonna make it. And as long as we're showing progress, which I still need to show, but as long as we're showing progress, they should be okay with that. In between those two reviews is number 10A, which is the DBE review, which happened in January, sort of under the radar. And there were 5 findings. 4 of them we have resolved, although we haven't gotten FTA, I mean, I think we've resolved, we just haven't gotten FTA to say we've resolved them. The 5th one is recalculating our DBE goal. And there's a lot of math associated with that, and that may take us a while, and we may need to get some technical assistance on that.
Did you talk before about even we meet the current goal easily, you talked about even raising it.
Well, I'll take that a step further. In FY15, we said we didn't meet the goal, and we did the analysis to show why we didn't meet the goal, and they said we did that analysis wrong, that we actually met the goal. So we didn't need to do the requirement of why we didn't meet the goal. The biggest issue is we haven't isolated the number of dollars that go through this authority that could possibly go to a DBE.
Right.
We've been taking all of our funding and dividing it into how much we give DBEs, or all of our federal funding, how much we give it to our DBEs, and getting that number, which is always around 1-2%. But like all the money that's spent internally that goes to drivers and all that stuff doesn't need to be part of that denominator. And the other part of that is we need to do more due diligence on the availability of DBEs. So having companies out there, disadvantaged business enterprises that could even work for us, and having a handle on how many of those are even available has to be part of that calculation. That can help you fluctuate your goal. And we've never done anything like that. So a lot of work on that, and FTA's been sending me weekly emails, and we'll get to it. We'll get to it when we can.
Dealing with the DBEs, and you going back to review, and you might already stipulate this, I'm just making sure I'm clear, is what's the purpose of reviewing anyway?
The DBE review?
Right.
This is the same kind of thing like a triennial. FTA comes in and looks at all your procedures and all your math, and they pick it apart and have findings. So it's the same. In fact, we have DBE findings on the triennial review, but they've let us sort of default to the DBE review on that. It's just, FTA focuses on how you're handling assets. They want to make sure you don't have any civil rights issues, which DBE is part of. And that's really, and cash handling.
So,
and those are their big 3 probably.
But each one of those classifications that you just spoke on, civil rights part of it, and the different components. You have to be a complaint before there be any particular problem.
Yeah, see, we've had no findings
Right.
related to that. This
That's
is
what I'm
all about our data collection and how we're presenting. Right. It's the math behind those.
And so, and like I said, I'm just asking questions because I'm just curious as I can be on this issue, because I'm just advanced business enterprise, how they operate within with the federal guidelines. If somebody was put in an application, and they were disadvantaged enterprise, business enterprise, would it be like, for example, if they put in a bid, and you got this a major company put on a bid, just for example, all they're asking for that they get a bid opposite opportunity to be presented, for that bid. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, we had a procurement that really kind of speaks to that, and that's the bus stop designation study. We had 2 proposals. One would have been 100% DBE, and one would have been between 40 and 50% DBE. But we really didn't distinguish them based on DBE. They both met our goal. And so we were able to go with one that we thought was you know, had more horsepower for all intents and
Okay.
purposes. So all our procurement, all our efforts to go out and find DBEs, we got kudos from FTA on. It was just how we're calculating our goal and how we're calculating our performance to meet that goal was really what we got hit on.
And my last question is, the DBEs that do apply, they have to be certified.
Yes, we use the state DOT
Okay,
certification.
all right,
So we don't have our own certification.
okay.
So if you're certified with state DOT, then you're certified with us.
Yeah, I was just seeing how the process worked. I was just curious how it goes.
And we've been trying to help some firms get through that certification process. as
They
best we
send
can.
us an updated list every
Okay.
week or every month.
So, a couple of other highlights on here. Just because I think it's funny, we hired this crack handyman firm the other day to come in and put the partition in the bathroom in the Myrtle Beach Transit
Oh,
Center. And we put treads on all of the stairway and the ramp, and we put a transition plate on the front door. And we put door closers, automatic door closers, and that was me and Tom Berta out there one Saturday
Did you
a
submit
few
a
weeks
bill?
ago. We did not, we did it gratis.
Gratis.
I bought breakfast, that was
Are you a
it.
DBE?
We are not a DBE by any stretch of the imagination.
You need to
but
apply.
Hopefully, the authority
Well,
did not get what they paid
live a
for.
little like me and you will be.
Hopefully, they didn't get what they paid for, but I think they were good. We still have not done anything on gutters. We're gonna try to get back up there and do some gutters to handle water a little better, especially when it gets cold. And we gotta put a new water heater in there. We've got a fire code issue where there's not enough space in the bathroom where with a traditional water heater. And we still need to work on the mural.
You're not gonna fall off a ladder. You have insurance on being down there?
I'm sorry?
We don't want you falling off a ladder or anything. You
Yeah.
have insurance?
Can't get a bid on gutters, there's gutter people up and
We-
down the road
we-
all the time.
We can't get anybody to do it. They're all so busy, they won't,
They're
it's,
building all
the
new
job isn't
homes.
big enough
Right.
for
Nobody
them to
wants,
wanna do anything.
nobody wants to do little work. They wanna build, they're
So-
building big homes.
So, we're gonna go out there one more and do it ourselves. That's
You
what
know,
it takes.
One thing about, you said you were gonna see Dr. Taylor, you'd like to see Dr. Taylor, she's the head of
FTA
FTA
regionals.
Region 4. But, is that in regards to the international buses?
I think so. It's just to let her know how hard we're working, more than anything else.
You might be
Our
able to.
staff's doing pretty good with
arrange
us.
too, or just meet with the international people there, or the route match people there.
Yeah, I did that, I met with Route Match at the South Carolina meeting. There's a lot of things going on with Route Match. The state is sort of getting out of the business of procuring paratransit scheduling software. And so they brought in a bunch of the different software groups to come in and do pony shows for folks. We sent Tom Ahrens to that meeting. But we are looking at doing a re-procurement for that software, and I'm not sure where to go with that. I need to have a better understanding of how Route Match works.
Right, what is Route Match?
It's
Is that
scheduling,
software?
it's software.
Software,
It
okay.
does a terrible job of scheduling trips because it doesn't handle our traffic patterns very well. It doesn't assign travel time properly, and that's something that I think can be tweaked within the system. But we're doing much better scheduling it manually and just using the Route Match for database, and we need to actually use it a little bit more for doing no-shows and cancellations and things like that, which is part of that capacity
Yeah. Speaking of
assessment
software,
that I was
what,
referring to.
refresh my memory on what we're doing about that time clock, and did we ever hire?
We
a
have an
company?
RFP on the street for payroll
All right,
services,
okay, all right.
and that will include automated timekeeping.
Okay, all right.
And so we have which is fast becoming an antique, time clock stamper.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
We have a deadline on it?
How long is it gonna
do you know when bids are due?
I'm trying to think, it's towards the end of October. We're gonna pick two and have them do a presentation, get the operations people in here too, because they're gonna need their supervisors to approve the punches on a daily basis, just so we get that real-time timekeeping capability. Then we'll look at launching it probably at the start of the calendar year, which would make sense, you know, so capture a full year. So we don't have part of 1 year and, you know, 2 W-2s and all that kind of stuff. So we would launch it January 1. And that'll give us plenty of time to get our, because we'll need a week or so of training for people. You know, and typically that's included as part of the service contract. We come in and teach people how to operate the system, basically. It'll just be a PC-based thing where people just log into a terminal and punch in and punch out, but the supervisors have to approve the time.
How much are we gonna save?
I don't know that
Nothing.
I don't know that we will save.
Yeah.
It may cost us a little bit more.
But it'll be done.
But it'll be more real time, we'll have better data on, you know, how many hours somebody has spent doing what. We'll be able to assign to departments. You know, we have a hard time making sure that time on you know, we have drivers that'll do a paratransit run and then do a transit run. We gotta distinguish between those times. It'll all be automated, a time sheet doesn't get approved until the supervisor approves it. And it automatically gets kicked back to the employee if there's a problem with it. And so then, you know, it'll feed right to whomever the payroll services are. And we don't have to worry about taxes, we don't have to worry about withholdings, we don't have to worry about any of that stuff. So it's really, it's opening up staff, hopefully, to do other things.
Right.
It's kind of,
But it may cost us a little extra to do it. I mean, we're not eliminating a position or anything by doing this.
But it might save
We
us.
won't be called on for doing something wrong if they're doing it for us.
Right, well, and we'll have automated data collection.
Yeah,
Right.
which might help in
Support.
report prepreparation,
Right.
budget preparation, that
Yeah.
sort of thing,
Right.
so the data will be more accurate, and, you know,
It is-
it's easy, more easily to compile.
I think we'll be out of the 90s. Once we get it in.
Out of the 90s, man.
We'll be out of the 90s.
I'm dizzy.
We
So
had
I'm
the
hoping-
pre-bid conference Friday.
We don't have any more 1990s buses,
No.
so we go this one last step, and we won't be doing timesheets on paper.
What about those, the Richmond buses, are they going?
They're gone.
Are they going?
Well, actually, I guess I got 4 more back out there that are going on gov deals as soon as possible.
That's if you want
We
one.
get much more?
Dump trucks.
We get much
I want one,
We don't
yeah.
know.
You want one? Yeah.
I think we
You gotta
paid
get you busy
$100 a
quick.
piece, didn't we?
Oh,
Plus we had to buy new tires.
I
Yeah,
think
we
we
paid a little
paid
bit more than that.
5,000 for them, didn't we, for each one?
Really?
No, I don't think so.
I thought it was
I think so. I'll have to go
$100.
back and look.
Yeah, I think it was less than that.
It wasn't very much.
No, but we had to
But
buy
then we
new
had to buy
tires.
new
Buy tires,
for 'em,
yeah.
And that's what the price was.
Maybe
So-
it was $100.
So I have
Yeah, I
2
think
more
so.
things I want to highlight on here. Stop enunciation. We had a little bit of a hiccup getting the new buses online for those that should be online
15.
here within the week, line 15. And then we should be rolling out stop enunciation here sometime in October, first part of October. And we'll see how it goes. We know that the geofencing is in good shape, so but I'm a little bit worried about these things kind of annoying people because they're going boom, we have too many stops, but we'll see how it goes. The other one is on the back side of the page, and it's actually 2 line items. 31 and 32 are 2 studies that we're going to do internally. I want to get a complaint assessment. I want to present that to the November service pack. I don't know that we'll have an October service pack, but so we'll do that first week of November. We'll do a presentation on complaints. So we had 5 in August, which is a little high. And then I also want to figure out, I don't have a time frame yet, but this Fairbox recovery comparison, this is on here because of your request. And I want to add to it Fairbox structure. And so, sometime maybe first part of next year, we're going to start that process. And I just want to get it on the list so I don't forget about it.
Well, what it is, Fairbox, in-service pay, you're right.
Yeah, I mentioned this. Did I mention this yesterday? Or it might have been at Service Impact. There's we've had a higher incidence of the component of the Fairbox called trims, which are the component that handles the tickets. Has been getting jammed and on a higher and higher basis, and so we're trying to implement a little bit more aggressive preventive maintenance on them, keep them clean. You have to the cards when they come out of the package can kind of stick, so you've got to kind of unstick them before you put them in there. There's procedures that have to.
Do we get any warranty service on those things?
They're too old. They're too old. You know, I think most of them are like in the neighborhood of 7 years old, and they really have a 10-year life. So over the next couple of years, we got to think about replacing them, which is why we want to do the fare structure analysis. So that's the first step before we start replacing them. We are the trim itself is about $3,000. We're trying to replace a few of them. I think, you know, part of the problem has been a really wet summer, so it's getting sticky in there. But we don't really have any data on how often they're failing, but we just staff as like they're failing more. So we just need to keep an eye on that. And I think it's happened enough where it's impacting our fare box recovery a little bit, because our fares are they're like $6,000 under budget for the year after August. Hopefully they rebound a little bit in September. So, and I think we had 520 in there, and we're like at 5 or 480 or something like that. We need about 40,000 in revenue in September in order to make our budget.
You know, with this damn
We'll see.
weather, everything is becoming mildew and everything. Why don't they get a hairdryer and put it in there and see if they can dry it out a little? Maybe that'll help. You know, simple things. I know it sounds simple, but, you know.
I mean,
It couldn't hurt.
They're sitting out here, you know, there's not that much space in there, so it's just a matter of making sure that you put in the card stock correctly and doing a little bit more preventive maintenance. We need to clean the trims more often and maybe dry them out a little bit, and just, you know, so Candace is sort of responsible for that, and she's doing a little bit more regular, you know, dismantling of the fare box and cleaning it out and putting it back in there and putting the new fare media in there.
If you're running a bus all day without a fare box, that's a couple $100 right there.
Easily. And I don't know that, I think we've been pretty good about, you know, you can, on the fly, you can open up the box and fix the trim. So I think, you know, we're just missing trips here and there. It's just happening with more regularity, so we've got to try to address it.
Yeah, I see it.
So what are we doing with that?
We're doing more preventive maintenance, and we're
Well, I mean-
replacing a few of those trims.
But I mean, are we getting any revenue from the people on the meeting?
No,
No?
no, the
Just
fare box is
pay
not
the fare.
working, no.
No, and rather than hold up service, we're running. So it's just something that we try to reduce. I mean, I think it's, you know, I just think it's a fact of life. The fare boxes are getting old, and we need to start thinking about replacing them. And, you know, we've got a few that have been sitting around that are not, we're not depreciating them. So we're gonna have some federal equity in them at the end of the 10 years that we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do with. But that kind of change is a system-wide change. You're not gonna phase in new fare boxes. You're gonna do it all at once. And so it's a big dollar item that we'll just have to plan for.
Now, the new buses have their fare boxes on them already, don't they? Or
No,
you-
they have.
No,
they
you
have one.
installed them?
We installed them.
So
they put
you
the bases
installed
in.
one of the old ones or new ones?
Well, we had some that have been sitting in the office that,
Oh, that's what
that,
were
you know,
installed,
so we
huh?
put them back in, but, you know, we had at one time 45 fare boxes, because there was 45 vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
So when we disposed of 16 of them, we took out 16 fare boxes that are not,
Right,
that weren't in use. So we've been rotating them in and out,
right.
and, you know, but it's,
And they're expensive.
10 grand a piece.
Jesus.
And the new ones will be more expensive, probably. I don't know. We'll see.
So are the people over at the transfer center in Myrtle Beach, are they trained to fix?
Yes. In fact, two of our better ones over there, Casper and Al, are really good at quickly putting them back online.
They're good in a lot of things.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Myrtle Beach Division, they like to call
Yes.
themselves.
They like that
They've
job
already
over there.
separated themselves from the flock.
They like that job, big time.
Oh, yeah.
And the city's given us multiple compliments on how they kind of keep people moving through there. Chief Rock is like, man, they're doing a great job over there.
Very classy,
So
very
it's
classy
a,
too.
It's been a win-win on multiple sides, so that concludes the manager's report.
Thank you very much. Now we're into 2 resolutions. Let's read them and
Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority, resolution number September 2017-17. Draft authorization to submit an accommodations tax or a tax application to the city of Myrtle Beach.
Yeah. It was draft yesterday for the committee meeting. We probably need to take the draft off of that, because now it's final. To get the resolution's final.
All right, so moved.
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So why don't we make that change?
I'll do
before we
that, I
get
can
to
do it
the-
right here. Go ahead and read this one. Waccamaw Regional Transportation Authority, resolution number September 2017-18. You'll notice the number is different. We numbered this one 18, since we don't have the one for the child protection policy, so that we don't have a number 19 and keep them
Okay.
going sequentially. Approval of FY 2018 budget.
I move we approve the budget.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Let me
Oh,
ask-
thank Lord.
let me ask one question on
It's
that.
over.
I got a question on the one that we're gonna make the change on the first one.
Yes,
Do we have to vote on it again when the change comes through?
I think we voted on it as changed, as amended, just making the draft out.
Okay, I was just
draft
checking, make
off
sure we
there.
voted on it. Then.
And that's how we vote, how we move.
Okay.
Okay. Old business. I'm at one item. A couple meetings ago, Kitty asked for some feedback from the APTA meeting that I and Lynette went to. My intent was to send out an email going through all my notes, but with my wife's hospitalization, I didn't get around to doing it. But my wife's illness, by the way, she came home yesterday.
Wow, great.
Her illness really started in Chicago when she was sick in bed for 3 days. And shortly after coming back, she was hospitalized on the 1st of August. So that's my excuse for not giving anything in writing.
Right.
But I do like to highlight a couple of things. First half day at APTA in Chicago, Lynette and I and the staff and board member were in the same sessions. In summary, we are lucky to have Lynette here compared to.
We know that.
This stuff up.
Did we all get something electronically before we sit down today?
Yeah.
Many of the authorities, they're given to it when they walk in the door, so I need time to read it ahead of time. The other thing picked up is we give graphs as well as words and numbers, which were, and that was one of the kudos. Very few did what we do here with
Brian
graphs.
started that.
Yes, and so we did very well on that. Common thread, the agencies that seem like they have no trouble financially are the ones that are all getting sales tax revenue. I think we all know that. We don't have a sufficient dedicated funding source. Spent some time with the guy from Savannah and I shared the table the whole time. They had actually no problem with funding in Savannah. And Columbia guy I sat with, same thing. We have more money than we need.
Oh, Lord.
And he went on that Richland County, they get the sales tax. Lexington, which is in their service area, did not participate. So guess what? Much like North Myrtle Beach, they don't get the same level of service that the one who's participating 1% sales tax.
I think Lexington funds through discretionary funds.
Right, correct.
It's at the old level.
Old level, and they
service.
get lesser service. You're exactly right.
And you just take that, if you don't mind, just taking that a step further, if you look at a city like Greenville, which is, a huge system, they put out less service than we put out.
And they have big money there.
And that's all the result of not having a dedicated funding source.
Believe it. The other surprise I had, this is all new to me, this whole, the way we transit does business. But one of the speakers asked, show of hands, how many of you know what 5307 and 5311?
They have no idea.
There was 2 of us raised our hand. And he really was taken back a little bit. He said, okay, let me ask it different. How many of you know about urban and rural? A few more hands went up. So I give a testament, the education of the newbie into this business, what you guys, Ron, what Brian, what you do here, and the orientation we had, but I was very surprised how few board members even, he went on and says, don't think you're micromanaging when you want to ask those kinds of details, but pretty well, Shasta, you sort of need to know how it works and where the money comes from to do your job. He said it nicer than that, that was really his thrust. It was an eye-opener to me.
Well, you know, other people that are on board said no one gives out and does as much work as this board does in the county.
Well, the education that I got in the short time I've been here, I have greater appreciation now after watching what had happened the other places. The last thing going through my notes last night was a couple of the bigger systems. Phoenix was one, and I think Miami. They're betting that the feds are going to come through with some huge infrastructure bill with more money to follow, and they're lining up. Now you know what's going to look like, how they get their hand on more money coming. So if you wait till Congress passes it, you're probably behind the power curve. So I don't know what we do with that information, but that was.
I'll tell you what we do. We've got to get the facility stuff up and running so we have answers on how we're going to spend any influx of dollars, because it's going to be exactly that type of grant program that we're going to need in order to fund a new facility.
Okay.
So
Shovel-ready grant.
we need a shovel-ready project, and in order to have a shovel-ready project, it's got to have all the environmental done. It's got the environmental justice that's got to be done. It's got to have design done. And that is a lot of money up front that we need to start working on. So as I mentioned yesterday in the budget here, there's $800,000 sitting at FTA that we need to get into a grant and start moving forward on that due diligence.
This is gonna cost a lot just to get started.
800,000 might get us to design.
Right,
It won't pay for design, but it might get us to design.
As an aside, in preparing to go to APTA, Lynette signed me up on the APTA email. I get stuff several times a week, and there's a wealth, really, it hits a lot of good stuff, like just yesterday, we read a $55 million grant for high, low emission vehicles. They awarded $55 million worth of stuff. So anyway, I'm sure you guys read it every day anyway, but it was an education to me that how much stuff is in.
If you don't have someone that can investigate all these grants and things, you're lost, you really. You know, I know when I was going for financial aid for my kids and things, there's so much money that it just sits there because everyone's afraid to apply for it.
They ain't
They
afraid to
don't know
apply for
about
it. They're not afraid to apply for it.
Or you need to have a shovel-ready project, or
Yeah.
you need to have local money and a local match for
Right,
it.
right.
And those are usually the bigger
Obstacles,
roadblocks.
yeah, obstacles, right now.
Obstacles moving forward on those grants. But, you know, I am going to the APTA annual meeting. It's that first week of October, which means I do need a spokesperson for Transportation Committee.
We're still.
I think it would be good for a board member to make it anyway, just to talk about funding and our budget and, you know, kind of where we're at on things. So I'll get hopefully somebody, either you or Dr. Sheehan, up for to make that presentation. But at the meeting, at the APTA meeting, I'm hoping to get an audience with Dr. Taylor. I'll add route match and paratransit scheduling to my list. But I'm also going to try to get some go-bys for business continuity plans, which is moving up my radar. So,
Okay. Let you have anything else you want to say about our Chicago trip that I didn't cover?
Well, thank you for the kind words, I appreciate it very much. I came to realize after hearing some of the horror stories from some of the board support staff, I am most fortunate and blessed to work for this board, I'm telling you. They had some real stories to tell, so thank you all for being so good to work with. I really appreciate it very much.
Any other old business items on the table?
You brought
So
something
where are
back.
they having the next expo?
Atlanta,
And when?
Atlanta, October.
This year?
This is an expo.
But this one expo?
Mm-hmm. You leave on the 8th. on
Any board
Sunday.
members going?
Just Brian.
We're trying to watch our budget.
Are they gonna have a golf tournament, Brian?
No golf. No golf. I can't play golf anymore. Suck at it.
This
Best thing that happened to me over the weekend was Virginia finally winning a football game that they weren't supposed to win. And I got to hang out with my dad for a few days, actually, that was the best thing.
This
Schedule.
October, November, December is this year, so.
Yep,
And that-
I gotta sign it.
Thank you.
What do you two want to discuss the schedule? There are a couple of
Okay,
changes.
Go ahead.
Did you point to me?
I'll get right back to that.
Steve, Pat, do you want to pass
Oh,
it?
Service committee and
Gotcha,
finance
gotcha.
committee, all right.
Yeah,
I'll get a
so
settlement.
we're,
You're gonna have finance same day as board, right?
No,
October 26th, October 26th.
that's this year. October, November, and December of this year.
Well, that's 2 Thursdays.
yeah, but finance
So, I'm
committee
sorry.
isn't gonna,
You have 2016 here.
I need to take that out.
okay, but finance committee is gonna be the week before October 26th, isn't it?
Yeah, you got years wrong.
This is just tentative, this is what we did last year when we went over the schedule. So I knew those three were subject to change.
Yeah, but
I'm confused.
We have these two on the same day.
What is this 2016?
It should be the week before.
that's a
Oh,
mistake.
it's a mistake. Oh,
This is
okay.
actually for this year, not 2016.
Understood.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
2017.
Yeah, and they were on the same day.
They were, because
Oh, I
that was,
see.
that
We
was
said-
something that I came
uh-huh.
in accidentally.
We set this tentatively
Accidentally,
last
yeah.
year when we did the new calendar.
So we're not having a December board?
Yeah, we talked about it in December early.
I think it's-
We-
So you just printed out last year's,
Yeah.
No,
None in December,
Well,
it says, but we are going to have one in December.
this
right?
is the current year, October, November, and December.
Essentially, November 30th would be your joint meeting, is what they were saying.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yes, okay. So we won't have service and pack in December, so that none in December is correct.
Right.
So we do want one, I think,
When is Thanksgiving in November?
23rd.
23rd, it's early, okay, so people won't be away by the 30th, okay. That's good.
Well, that is an early meeting.
So that should be November 30th,
Last year, we
2017.
had it on
Yeah.
December 6th, I believe it was.
why don't we talk about it in these terms? We're gonna keep service and pack as being that first Wednesday of the month, unless it lands on the first of the month, and then we'll push it to the 8th. That make sense?
The first and the second.
Is it the, I guess, is it the second?
second.
It's the second Wednesday, yes. Okay.
Which is,
Is anybody getting this?
I am really confused. November, you're talking about November 16th?
Don't look at 2016 on there, just.
No, but are you
mark that.
talking about November 16th as having a service pack committee?
Yes.
November 9th is the service pack,
Mhm.
All
which
right,
is the second Wednesday.
all
Right.
right.
The third Wednesday, because apparently there must be 5.
Okay, the 9th is a
Finance.
Thursday though.
These dates for October, November, and December are the dates that we decided on last year when we did the calendar. I didn't change those.
For last year or for
Yes.
this year?
We approved these dates for this
For
year.
the calendar year.
Last year when we did the calendar.
All right, so we have to have November 8th then, you're talking
Yes.
about, November 8th.
So November 8th
Mhm.
And then
Service
November
for service
15th,
pack.
then November 15th for finance.
They actually know.
He wants a Thursday.
Marvin has a class on Wednesdays.
Oh, so
So
he
this
wants-
semester, he wants to push them to Thursday, so
All right,
November
so
16th is
16th.
correct.
All right.
Oh, okay.
And then November
November
30th,
29th,
what's November 30th? Is that where we're gonna have the board meeting?
scratch that.
All right.
It'll be
Have that?
November 29th,
No,
No, November.
No, we're gonna make it December.
Okay.
yeah, we're gonna do December 6th.
December 6th.
All right.
Happy birthday to me.
God
Happy
bless you.
birthday cake.
Happy
Well,
birthday.
you're gonna send these out anyway.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
we're gonna send out an edited version, but I just wanna make sure everybody was on the same page.
All right.
I'm on the
I
page.
don't
And
know.
I don't know if being on the same page is actually, that's very good on this particular page.
So in October,
What are we doing there?
we're not having service and pack in October.
No,
What about finance?
finance, we gotta have one.
Okay.
Is 26th the right date?
I don't think so.
Because we need it on Thursday.
October,
Or it
yeah,
needs to be
26th.
before.
The 26th is Thursday in
Yeah,
October.
If you're gonna read it, could you put beside the date, the day of the week, after the day, Wednesday,
I
Thursday?
will, what I will do is put it down here where it has service impact committee starting at 9.
Well, you can't, except when you get into finance, it's gonna start out on Thursday.
Yeah,
and
we'll put
revert
it,
back to.
we'll put it
Yeah.
into the column. All right, the October Finance Committee is gonna be on the 19th, which is a Thursday,
October the 19th.
October the 19th. And then the
Yes.
board meeting needs to be on the 25th, which is a Wednesday.
Mhm.
Let everybody know that I'm not gonna be able to make the 19th.
Okay. No, okay.
19th is what, is
It's
a.
a
Finance,
Thursday.
it's a Thursday.
Let's
Thursday.
see. Oh, yeah, I'm having.
And once we agree on these dates, I will go through and do an invite for the whole board for all the dates, and all you have to do is click accept, and they'll all go on your calendar.
Is that working now?
If you
They go on a calendar that I don't
yeah.
use.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
well, I've
November
had so many dates on there,
Yeah, they go to the wrong
Well,
calendar.
I think that happened to me before, that's why I was calling board meeting.
Tell me what,
Do
and
you-
I,
what calendar do you
Does
use?
everybody, do you
You
use
don't
Outlook?
use
I was
Outlook?
calling
No, I
meetings.
use the Google Calendar.
But it should still work.
It'll go on the Google Calendar too.
It should.
It goes on my Google Calendar.
But you have to accept it. When
Yeah.
I send it to you,
Go down to the bottom.
yeah, you'll
Yeah, I
get
accept
an
it, I accept
email.
it, but it goes to iCal, which is
What's
a Mac,
iCal?
like a
Sure, I-
Macintosh.
Oh, you have a Mac.
That will, yeah, that one, I think that one jumps up
Yeah,
in
so
front
we
of everybody.
probably need to change settings on your phone in order to put it on the right calendar.
I use mine.
So, we can help you with that if you want us to.
Does it go to iCal?
Yeah, because I use for just
Yeah.
putting in mine.
And it goes to
Right.
yours.
I think it might go to mine, but I
I
never.
gotta go back.
So-
to
Where it
the
is
browser
anymore.
again.
The thing is that when you get that email, you have to click on accept,
Yeah,
or
on
it's
the
not
bottom.
going to go on your calendar.
Right, right.
Well,
Well,
see,
I was
if you-
sending out-
If you click on accept, that's the only way it will go into your phone?
Mhm.
Or if it, you have three things, accept,
You could do tentative and it'll get on your
You can
calendar.
do accept,
If you decline it,
tentative, or
it
decline.
won't go.
And
won't go.
ignore it.
won't go.
Mhm.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
ignore it, it won't.
Won't
If
do
you
anything.
decline it, it won't.
Yeah, well, something was wrong because I was getting ones from Chuck.
Yeah, you know why? Because last year when we did the calendar, I sent it out to everybody,
Uh-huh.
and at that time he was on the board. But
Oh.
I've gone back and taken him off,
Okay.
so that's why.
So,
And once we get this finalized, we'll post it on the website
Mhm.
too.
yes.
Absolutely.
Because we didn't want
Yes.
to show up to meetings.
So then in November, we'll have service impact on November 8th.
Mhm.
We'll have finance committee on November 16th. But we won't have a board meeting until December 6th.
A board meeting in November.
December 6th. Oh, that's a
Right.
good time. That's better than November.
It's a November, December meeting.
Yeah.
And so then we
We
will,
have one
we will make
December
sure
6th.
that the rest of the meetings are second Wednesday for service impact, third Wednesday for finance committee, and fourth Wednesday for
Are you
our
having a
board.
Christmas party?
Not for finance.
When? Do you have a date?
Wednesday, it goes back to Wednesdays
Oh,
after the first of the year.
Oh.
He just has a class conflict.
10 o'clock, what do we think?
Service impact has been at 9, finance at 10, board meetings at 9:30, unless you guys want to change the time.
You got 9:30 on hit on it. Yeah.
That's what board meetings are.
I'm talking about.
You got a finance.
Finance
Yeah,
thing on the bottom
finance
of it.
and impact used to be 9, now it's 9:30.
Yeah.
Mhm.
9:30 is good.
But it's really 10, isn't it? Is that right?
It's 10 for.
When we
for
had them
finance.
separate, when this calendar was done, they were at, service was at
So we'll fix
9
the
and
bottom.
finance at
Right,
10, so, you know. The reason that says 9 to 9:30, that was a bulleted one for one up here.
I want you to make this
I'll
page
fix that.
landscape and
Mhm.
put date, day,
Mhm.
date, and time in each slot.
Gotcha.
Almost every-
So we don't have any
Yeah.
generalities.
All right, so we're going to have PAC meetings now at 9:30 instead of 9?
No, 10.
You're going to have, that's finance.
Service pack is at 9, that's when Lily
Oh,
Jean
it's
wants them.
9:30,
Oh, really?
right, 9. Oh, okay.
Service pack's at 9?
I was hoping.
Finance is at 10 because that's when Marvin wants them.
Yeah, the board chair.
And then boards at 9:30 because I'm not sure who wants it then.
It makes sense.
Nobody
Nobody
wants it.
Driving hours.
I eat breakfast and all that, wouldn't be here on time.
That's what we get for doing this morning.
I know.
We spent more time on the calendar than we did on the budget.
I gotta come, well, I gotta come down, I gotta get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, I gotta come down 9.
I
So-
will do this and send it out to everybody, and then I'll also go in and do invites for all of them, Just make sure when you get the email, you click accept or tentative, so it'll go on your calendar.
I'm gonna try.
So a couple things,
Do I
when is
accept
the,
this?
when is the Christmas party?
It is December 9th
Summer night at the Sheraton.
at the Sheraton.
At the Sheraton?
Yes.
Oh, that's
And
nice.
if
They
you,
gave
at
us
the
a great
convention
day,
center.
great
Oh,
deal.
I like that.
If
Getting
you
off
would-
of 501 is so much easier to
December
come down
9th.
for some.
If you would like
And
to
then-
stay overnight, they're giving us a $49 rate. But
Really?
You
Oh, I have
are
to do-
responsible for calling and making your reservation and paying for your reservation.
And what do we say, that it's for Coast?
For, yes.
Coast Christmas party.
We'll say for Marlboro Beach.
And Pam, I'm sure Pam will be sending out something,
December 9th?
yes.
6 o'clock.
Oh,
So
that's
Saturday.
great. Oh, that's great. Is that the, I wonder if that, is that the parade?
One other,
I'm gonna give up the parade. this
one
year.
other thing is, just because we had a little bit of, issues with this with the finance committee, I guess, this time around, where we ended up having to push it a week. There was one request to move it up, and because we typically have a quorum at all our meetings, we're following through on the public meeting laws. So we couldn't move it forward without 48 hours notice, so we were already within the 48-hour window, that's why we put the kibosh on moving it up. So just if you need a meeting change, this is mostly for the chairs of those, but if you need a meeting change, then understand that we usually have to postpone it so that we meet the 48-hour rule.
Or let us know on Friday before.
Yeah, or let us
the
know in
meeting.
advance, yeah.
Okay.
I just want to say kudos to Daryl and to Bernie, they got perfect attendance.
Really? Really?
Yes, when you retire, you can do a lot of things, can you?
And we don't need an executive session today, correct?
No.
Okay. Any announcements? Is this gonna be Ron's last meeting?
I don't know yet.
We're working on a deal where he might be working remotely and coming into town on a regular basis.
I'm kind of homeless right now because Toledo, Ohio has become the new New York City for some reason, and I'm unable to put in a bid for a house fast enough, so I have nowhere to live. I'm living in
I have a
Tidewater.
room
We're still
already
working on
too.
it.
Living in Tidewater?
I'm living in Tidewater now.
Really?
Just like, yeah, I keep,
Is that
it's some nice
area?
condos over there, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really nice. And
Yeah, but don't drive through there at nighttime.
why is that? It's dark.
Yeah.
But
I think that's it.
Okay.
But let me go ahead and remind everybody of the Jazz Festival this weekend. In Myrtle Beach, the last Jazz Festival, and those who went last year, was one day, this year 3 days. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the fact that Brian has authorized some transits for shuttles that they did last year. We got a lot of people that call in, and we appreciate that. The shuttles will be going to, of course, Brian already aware, but they're going to the Pelican Stadium, the park, drop people off and back and forth. We expect about at least 5,000 to 10,000 people probably for a 3-day period now. But the transit buses get good exposure. People are riding them, and so they could be full. It may not be full, but there'll be people on those buses.
Where's the parking lot for the?
It's a Pelican Stadium.
Pelican Stadium
Oh.
is the parking
So
lot.
there's shuttle between Pelicans over to the neighborhood.
Right. And I gotta meet today with the law enforcement to make sure we get everything set up to keep the buses on. Right.
I went last, actually, it was the inaugural event. It was
Yeah, it was good.
hot that day, but it was very nice.
Yeah, it was hot.
You're looking at
And
some
you,
good
and
weather
you
this
went to the
weekend.
parking
Smoking.
lot, I remember.
And I met somebody's wife.
Yes, yes, there was parking cars.
Well, what's your announcement?
I do.
Deb is leaving, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Wait, who leaving?
Deb is leaving on a
Motorcycle.
She's leaving on a freight train.
She already been, didn't she?
No, I'm leaving on Saturday morning from Tybee Island at 3:00 a.m. and I'll be in San Diego, like early Monday morning at the same time.
Who all going on a motorcycle? There'll be a bunch of people, right?
No, just, well, to me, and I've got 2 other support on my team, and that's it. Just 3 of us.
Wow.
Guy across the street was
Jesus.
revving
Go by
up his
motorcycle all the way to
Just
San
because
Diego.
it's, just
Next
because
to
Oh
it's
my
there.
God.
his truck.
Oh, bless your soul.
There, that's right.
Any other announcements?
Well, be safe.
Well, I'd like to say that,
You have a
Yeah,
Facebook,
we'll be
you have
praying for you,
Facebook
Deb.
pages and
I'm
stuff?
glad our vice chairman's wife is doing well.
She's
Yeah, I
driving.
don't do
I'm really
Facebook,
glad.
your friend,
Yeah, I'm
got
impressed.
I'll
And,
find it, however, I used to do it, I can't remember it anymore how to do
If you
it.
get on my Facebook page, my personal, which I'll look, I'm gonna go ahead and do like live videos at every single stop.
Can I ride?
Okay.
I got one.
You want to ride on the back?
I got one.
Coast to coast, are you sure? You got the Jazz Festival this weekend.
No, but I got like, you know, I got one got a rocket on it. I can catch that with you. Oh, God bless you on that highway.
Thank you.
A motion to adjourn? So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.